Hi, Peter Charles here of Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And if you've been following my series on active nymphing, you've known I've been trying to develop a method to properly fish an active nymph and have a good chance of detecting a strike and hooking a fish and all that kind of good stuff. The problems I was finding in the earlier videos when I was out fishing before was, first off, I seemed to go down the run very quickly and I didn't feel like I was really fishing the run all that effectively. I had problems with some slack line at times, and I'm sure I missed a few fish. So I wasn't getting the strike detection all of the time. Sometimes it's blindingly obvious. You remember that one where the fish actually hit so hard it threw up a little bit of spray off the line. Some of them you wouldn't miss them at all. Others, you're not so sure. You're starting to move it and you think you feel something and you go, oh, was that a fish? Was that not? So strike detection, I was going through the run too fast. And the other problem was I didn't feel I was controlling the up and down motion all that well. It was going too fast. And they don't go up and down like that. And there goes into the problem of, going through the run too quickly. Is if you go very nice and gradual, you're going through the run. So I had to come up with a method to solve all of that. And if you saw the test tank video, I looked at fly construction and thought, is there a way to solve it with fly construction? What's happening when they're going up and down? What are the things I'm supposed to be aware of? And I'm realizing I've got other problems. The fish attitude of the fly doesn't look good to the fish. So I went out again and I thought, okay, we're going to try something a little different. And what I came up with is a series of mends, backward mends, always moving the float backwards. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So I make a little cast across stream and a little bit upstream, and I'll lift and I'll put the float behind the fly, and again. So I'm extending my drift by always moving the float backwards. I'm giving myself more time. And it's a very easy method, and you can control the speed very well by how fast you're moving the rod tip. And at this point, I hook a little bass. I didn't bother putting it on camera and show it to you. It's a little tiny thing. Okay, so here's another look at it. Again, look at my rod tip. I'm not moving it very much, and I'm moving it slowly. I'm giving myself time. Up goes the float. The float goes behind its original position, which brings the fly up, then lets the fly drop. And it's very controlled. Now here I was just starting to lift, and bingo, a very nice fish grabs it and jumps out of the water with it and tosses the hook. So there's an example. I'll stop it right there. There's an example of, just as you're making the lift, it's surprising how many fish hit just as I'm starting to lift. I did get a few hits on the drop, caught a few fish on the drop. I caught a few fish when the fly wasn't really doing very much, like the in-between the two motions. But the most common one is I start to lift and bang, like that one. That was a nice fish. I wish I'd landed that one. So let's take a look here. This is a little bit clearer. You can see the float. You can see how I just put it back. It's a very calm motion. It gives me time to work a run. And how much I lift it and how much I move it will depend on the depth. So here's a slow-mo, and I'm going to show you that you can track, the red circle will track the float, and you see it goes backwards, and then it drops. And that was a high lift. That will bring the fly up quite close to the surface. And then this next one, I believe, is a little lower lift. It won't bring the fly quite as high. So it goes up a little bit, comes back a little bit, and drops it back down. So you can, shows you how you can control how much your fly comes up, how high it goes. I'll just stop it there for a moment. That's an interesting point to raise, is that I had the fly come right to the surface at times and fish hit it at the surface. Unfortunately, they were little guys and I didn't hook them up. But the point of the matter is I was getting hits with the fly right at the surface. The little guys were chasing it. And I've seen that behavior when they're going after naturals, where you see the small trout barreling right out of the water as it chases a natural that's on the way up. So that kind of behavior, that your fly is going up and it gets right to the surface and they whack it. So here's the last one. I think this is a little bit higher, and I drop the float behind. So I'm constantly repositioning the float behind. It extends my time in the drift. It makes everything controllable, and I'm always under tension. That's the beauty of this method. It's never without being under tension. I'm going to stop at this point And I'm going to show you a demonstration here in front of me of what this actually looks like, what's going on with the fly. So we have our water level here. I have my float and I have my fly, and it's drifting along in the current, and it's probably sinking a little bit, and then I make the mend, and I pull it up, and the fly comes to the surface. I drop the float back down, and as it drifts with the current, the fly goes down. And then I make another mend, pulling the fly up, drop it down, and then it sinks down. So that's what this process is looking like. And the interesting thing here is I'm using water pressure against the leader. So as the leader's dropping because the fly is dragging the leader down, there's current pushing against that leader, and so it's pushing like this, and that is going to slow down the sink of a heavy fly. And that gets away from the problem of I've got this really heavy fly, I'm fishing a relatively shallow run, but I want it to get down quickly because it's a fast run. You can avoid that really unnatural rocket down because the current is pushing on the leader. So as it drops down here, as it drops like that, you've got resistance of the water against the leader. And that's going to slow that drop of the fly down and make it look more natural. You're not going to get that tail first drop that you saw in the test tank. And while I'm at this, let's talk about loop knots for a moment. If you use a loop knot, the fly will drop like that, which is not a bad thing. It'll go down fast. So if you're fishing fast water, a loop knot is a good idea because you're going to get a longer time in the drift and allow the fly to get down a little faster because it's nosing straight down. If you have a knot that's tight to the fly, it will tend to drop more level. So it'll be dropping something along like that. So it will be maybe a little bit nose up, it might be a little nose down, but it will not drop straight down because the tension of the leader and that tightness of that knot is going to change the orientation. So keep that in mind. If you want it to drop more or less straight down, use a loop knot. If you want it to have a little bit more of a slower, more level drop, then I would say, tie on with the tight to the fly knot. It's a good idea in slower water and in shallower runs where you don't want to be dragging the bottom all the time. The knot tight to the hook is a good idea, but for your deeper, faster runs and you need to get down quickly, relatively quickly, then the loop knot will get you down faster. But because it's dragging the leader down, it's not going to go down like a stone like we saw in the test tank video. It will go down slower. And I could tell that when I was fishing. I'm fishing a relatively shallow run, and over a span of 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, it's not hitting bottom, and I'm using a very heavy fly. If I had used my straight up and down method that I was trying before, I'd be right in the rocks every time with that fly. So it was proving that this method was keeping the flies out of the rocks. I did hit bottom on occasion, obviously, but I wasn't hitting bottom constantly with a heavy fly. I could fish a heavy fly in a shallow run that wasn't too fast, and I could control it, which was the problem before. The control was iffy. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And if I was trying to, manage the fly, a heavy fly on a shallow run that wasn't moving too fast, I spent a lot of time pulling them out of the rocks. So let's keep going, and we'll see the rest of this. So here's an example of a fish hitting right at the end of the drift. So always pay attention. Don't give up. Start yanking out of the water. And that was a relatively small trout, but it's quite nice. And here's another case, another fish on, a little bit smaller this time, and that's a perfect example of, making sure that you're always staying tight to the line, because I didn't really feel that guy very much at all. The other guy did. He was a thump. This one, I didn't feel all that much. So being tight to the float and the float being tight to the fly enabled me to feel that just a little tiny bump and, a lift, and the fish is on. So how are we feeling these fish? So most of the time I'm getting on the lift. So I lift up and I feel a whack, or the fish is there. You're just lifting, it's there. Or as I say, you lift up and bam. Casting straight across, and I'm just, controlling, dropping the fly down, and just sort of there's a little dead drift portion, get a hit. And because you're tight, you feel it. Again, it may not be a big one, but you'll feel that bump. And on the drop, what you normally see is the indicator go, or the little float. You'll see that dart as you begin to drop, because your movement as you drop is going to be very smooth. And when the float hits the water, if it's float's not on the water, you'll feel the fish. But if a float's on the water, what you'll see is it'll just dart like that when you get a hit, and you'll sometimes feel them as well. So there it is. It's the method I've come up with that really works for this. You catch fish, you maximize your time in the water for the fly in the water, you maximize your time on the run, you're staying in contact with the fly, you can manage the speed the fly drops up and down, you can manage depth, so you could go from a deep run to a shallow run, a fast run to a slow run, and be able to manage these different depths and speeds without any real problem. So give it a try. It's just simply mending the float behind its original position. So you take it from one spot, move it backwards, and then it cover that ground again, and you go a little further and do it again. So you're continually repositioning the fly a little upstream every time you do that, and then it drops back down again. Pull it upstream, drops back down again. It gives you the opportunity to spend more time in the run, and it's very effective. The fish whack it. This is only some of the fish I had hooked up. I didn't bother putting them all on camera, on the video here. But it was like bang, bang, bang. It was a very good day. The other thing I want to mention is using this method, I've hooked stockers, stocked browns. I've hooked stream bred rainbows and browns. I've hooked a sucker, a bass, a whole bunch of creek chubs, and in all sorts of different runs. So it's a method that has wide applicability. There we go, I'll get it out. And the other thing I'll say is I've got a decent range in size, anywhere from an 8-inch fish all the way up to about 15, 16, doing this method. So, it's not just a small fish method. The bigger ones will take it as well. So, give it a try. It's a lot of fun. The benefits are really, for our perspective, is not only is it effective catching fish, it's more interesting than just watching an indicator go down the creek. You're actually doing something. You feel the hit. You're not just concentrating on that bobber and watching it dart. You're actually doing something. And it makes it a much more active presentation for the fish and for you. I find I'm more connected to the fishing when I'm doing something. It's when I'm not doing anything and just watching a float, I start to nod off, and then the float goes and I miss the fish. So I like this method. It keeps me engaged. It's more interesting. I have to pay attention to what I'm doing, and you feel the wax. When the fish really takes it aggressively, it's a lot of fun. So give it a try, active nymphing. I'm having a lot of fun with this. It's going to be my preferred method for a while, I think. So give it a try. Cheers.